Since our parsing may throw an error, we are going to wrap it into a do and catch block, so we can catch in case if we have any errors. So we put a do and catch block, and in my catch I'm going to say print, and we're going to print error reading comma separated value file, and let's put a comma, and I'm going to put my error here. So we say error dot localized description. So in case if we have any error through parsing our file, we want to be notified so we can fix it. Comma CSV. And the function we need to write for parsing is first we need to get the data. So we say let data is equals, and we're going to try because this may return error, and we say data, and we're going to create a data from contents of URL, and you see it says throws here, so it may throw an error. That's why we are calling a try here. And the URL is gonna be our URL that we are passing to our function here. Then we are going to encode our result from our CSV. So we say data encoded is equals to string, and we are going to make a string with data, and with encoding the data is going to be our data that we just created, and encoding is going to be .utf8. And once we have this, we can go through every line of our comma separated value. Let's open it again and see how it looks. So the top line, the first one, it just says what headers like we have. This is the cities, countries, and country code, which is the short code. So basically, the first line we're going to parse through is not really a location. This is just a header, so we know what information our comma separated values have. Then we have the name of the city, comma, name of the country, comma, and a short country code. And afterwards we have just a backspace, so which was put go to the next line there. So if we go to our function here, we say if let data array short r equals, and we go to data encoded, as is an optional, dot components separated by, and we are going to actually take our comma separated value and divide them and to take each line of this file. So we have to, because our line finishes with enter, and we can, this way we can determine once we reach an enter point, it means that our line is breaking and our line finishes. So we can take this part and then break it down whenever we find a comma. So first we break down whole text wherever we find an empty space, which is next line. And then we break down with whenever we find a comma. So we have 3 separate arrays inside our array of string. So it's string 1, which is the city, then the country, then the country code. And then we will get another object and we put it inside our array. So we want to separate by, and we need to separate them by empty space, so an enter, and this is /n. So whenever our code finds /n, it means it's going to the next line. So we want to catch this object. And then we want to take this object and separate them by commas. So we are going to map it. And we are going to, let's see, map. And we need to put a $0 here. So we will map components separated by, and we are going to separate them by comma here. And once we take this and map our big file to our data array, as a result, we are going to have a array of string which contains 3 strings inside: city, country, and country code. Um, let's say for line in data array. You see, it's a type of string array which contains array of strings. I'm going to say print, and let's just print the line. And then we want to let's put comma here. We want to go to next line. So if I say /n, it will take us to the next line. So this way we will see like what we have in our parsing here. So what our data array looks like. So if I go to my view did load and call my function, and let's run our application to see what will happen. Okay, I need to click on a plus button and click on an add button again. And let's see what's going on here. Of course, it crashed. We're going to see what's the crash reason. But as you can see, it printed huge number of items here, and it's actually not possible to scroll all the way up. But what is interesting for us is each line is an array of 3 strings inside of it. Is the country, as the city, country, and country code. Let's quickly check what's our error here. And our error is related to our table view, most probably because we never set up the, it's table view number of rows in section. We have, let me stop here. If we go to main storyboard and select our table view, let's open the connections inspector. We set the data source and delegate of our table view to be our view, but inside our view we never set the functions that are required for table view. That's why it's crashed. But this is not what we care about right now. We're going to fix it later. All we need is to be able to see this printout. So our parsing is working properly. It takes our comma separated value and creates small arrays of objects. So what we want to do the next, as the next step, is we want to take these arrays of this string and we want to create a weather location from this. So this is what we are going to do in our next lecture. But before we can actually create location, remember that our first object inside our comma separated value file is not really a location. So we need to skip this line. We don't want to create a location from this line. So what we need to do is, let's get rid of this print statement, is to have some kind of if statement here, which will check which line we are on. So I will say if line.count is greater than 2, because our first line is kind of useless, then the second line onwards is our useful information there. And we need to skip the first line. So I'm going to put a variable here, call it I, which is equals to 0. And I'm going to check what's the value of I. So I will say, and I is not equals to 0. It means that whenever we have more than 2 lines in our data array, not in our data array, whenever we have more than 2 objects in our line, and our line is actually this. So we need to have 3 things in our line, all right? Because we need the city name, the country name, and the country code. If any of the lines contains less than 3 things, we are not going to parse it because clearly it's missing some information which is required for us. So that's why we check if it's greater than 2. And the I equals 0 is just to skip the first line. So whenever I is 0, we are going to skip. And then once our if statement finish, I'm going to say I plus equals 1. So we add 1 to our I. So on the next run, it will come and check that our I is 1. So we are parsing the line 1 now. And we want to do it actually, because the first line is useless for us. It's the headers. So in our next lecture, we are going to write the function that is going to take a line of these 3 strings array, and it will create a weather location from it.